I see you standing at the edge of a precipice, staring into the fog of your own indecision, claiming that the world is holding you back. I tell you now, with the cold clarity of a lifetime spent dissecting the human soul, the world is not your cage. Your own will is the bars. You speak of conflicts as if they are external storms passing through your life, but they are actually the internal tremors of a self that is too terrified to truly be born. You aren't a victim of circumstance. You are a victim of your own refusal to exist as an individual, choosing the safety of a mental prison over the agonizing freedom of your own reality. The struggle you feel, this constant friction between what you want and what you do, is not a sign that you are broken, but a sign that you are desperately trying to avoid the responsibility of your own creation. You project your fears onto others, blaming your parents, your partner, or your past. Because if the conflict is out there, you don't have to face the truth in here. You are currently living a life that is a collection of borrowed identities and inherited expectations, and the tension you feel is the sound of your true self suffocating under the weight of your need for approval. It is time to stop looking for a cure and start looking for the courage to accept that your reality is a hallucination designed to keep you safe from the risk of living. You are not lost in the woods. You are hiding in the bushes, hoping that by not moving, you can avoid the pain of being seen. This conflict is the only thing keeping you from the terrifying necessity of making a choice that is entirely your own. If you are ready to stop romanticizing your suffering and start understanding why you cling to it so tightly, subscribe to this channel and join me in the wreckage of your illusions. 1. The cowardice of external blame. You tell me that your life is difficult because of the people around you, because of the toxic environment you inhabit. But I see through this mask immediately. I recognize this behavior as the ultimate form of self-sabotage, where you use the flaws of others as a shield to protect yourself from your own potential. By making your unhappiness the fault of someone else, you grant them total power over your existence, effectively choosing to be a slave so that you never have to face the burden of being a master of your own destiny. I have watched countless individuals wither away in this state, preferring the comfort of resentment to the terrifying isolation of independence. You are not trapped by them. You are trapped by the secondary gain of being the victim, a role that allows you to remain small and unchallenged. Every time you complain about how you are being treated, you are actually reinforcing your own helplessness. I argue that you stay in these situations because they provide a convenient excuse for your lack of growth. If your narcissistic boss or your unsupportive family disappeared tomorrow, you would be forced to face the void of your own empty will. And that is what you fear most. You would rather be in a war with others than be at peace with the fact that you are responsible for everything you experience. This external conflict is a projection, a cinematic display meant to distract you from the silent, internal collapse of your own integrity. You are using the world as a scapegoat for your own refusal to stand up and walk away. I want you to understand that as long as you point a finger, you are paralyzed. Independence is not found in changing others, but in the brutal realization that their opinion of you is irrelevant to your actual survival. You have become addicted to the drama of being wronged because it gives your life a false sense of purpose. Without this conflict, you would have to ask yourself, who am I when I am not fighting against something? For most of you, the answer is nothing, and you will do anything to avoid that silence. You are creating the very enemies you claim to hate, just so you have a reason to stay exactly where you are. It is a profound form of psychological laziness to believe that your mind is a passive recipient of external reality. I see your mind as an active architect, carefully selecting which traumas to emphasize and which slights to remember in order to justify your current stagnation. You aren't experiencing reality, you are experiencing your own defense mechanisms. The conflict you experience is the birth trauma of a self that refuses to be delivered into the cold air of autonomy. You are clinging to the womb of your excuses, even as it becomes a tomb. To live is to separate, and you are terrified of the distance that comes with being truly yourself. Stop pretending that you are waiting for the right time or for others to change. There is no right time. There is only the moment you decide that the pain of being a lie exceeds the fear of being real. I tell you that your problems are actually your solutions. They are the clever ways you've found to avoid the risk of failing on your own terms. You would rather fail because of someone else than succeed because of yourself. This is the ultimate betrayal of the individual will, a slow suicide committed in the name of circumstances. You are the author of this tragedy, and the conflict is merely your favorite plot device to keep the story from ending in a breakthrough. 2. The addiction to approval as a slow death. I observe you moving through the world like a shadow, constantly adjusting your shape to fit the light of other people's expectations. You call yourself an empath or a people pleaser, but I call you a thief of your own soul. You steal your own potential and offer it as a sacrifice to the gods of social acceptance, hoping that if you are good enough, you will never have to face the terror of being rejected. This is not kindness. It is a calculated strategy for survival that has left you hollow. You have built a personality out of the yeses you didn't want to say and the noes you were too afraid to utter. The conflict you feel is the friction between the mask you wear and the face you are hiding. I see the exhaustion in your eyes, the deep fatigue that comes from maintaining a performance that never ends. You are terrified that if you stop performing, the audience will leave, and you will be left alone with a self you don't even recognize. I tell you that this fear of isolation is the primary driver of your misery. You would rather be a well-liked ghost than a hated human being. By seeking approval, you are handing the keys to your internal kingdom to strangers who don't even care about your happiness. Your need to be understood is a form of spiritual immaturity. Why do you require the world to validate your existence? I argue that it is because you have no internal foundation, no will that is independent of the collective. You are a mirror reflecting back what you think others want to see, and because of this, you have no depth. The conflict arises when the mirror begins to crack under the pressure of the truth. You are not helping people. You are manipulating them into liking you so that you can feel safe. It is a parasitic relationship where you trade your authenticity for a false sense of security. Every time you keep the peace, you are declaring war on your own psyche. You think you are being nice, but you are actually being dishonest. You harbor a secret resentment toward the very people you are trying to please, because deep down, you know they are the jailers of a prison you built yourself. I have seen this resentment turn into a poison that rots the individual from the inside out. You become passive-aggressive, cold, and cynical, all while maintaining the smiling empath facade. The conflict is not between you and them. It is between your cowardice and your integrity. To become an individual, you must be willing to be the villain in someone else's story. If you are not willing to be misunderstood, you will never be free. I want you to feel the weight of this. Every yes you give to something you hate is a no to your own life. You are dying in installments. giving away pieces of yourself until there is nothing left but a hollow shell of compliance. The fear of the social death is what keeps you in line. But I tell you that the psychological death you are currently experiencing is far worse. You are already dead. You're just waiting for the world to notice. 3. The will as a weapon of creation. Most of you speak of willpower as if it were a tool for dieting or waking up early. But I see the will as the fundamental force of human existence. It is the power to say, I am, even when the entire world screams, you are not. The conflict you experience is the result of a divided will. One part of you wants to expand and create, while the other part wants to shrink and hide. You are in a state of perpetual stalemate, a civil war within the self that drains your energy and leaves you paralyzed. You aren't stuck. You are actively using your will to hold yourself back. I believe that the creative act is the only way to justify existence. When I speak of creation, I don't just mean art or writing. I mean the creation of your own character, your own values, and your own reality. You are the artist, and your life is the canvas. Yet you act as if the paint is being thrown at you by accident. The conflict is your refusal to pick up the brush. You are afraid that if you create something, you will be responsible for it. So you prefer to remain unformed and potential. But potential is just a polite word for a life that hasn't happened yet. Your anxiety is the sound of your unused will turning against you. Like a muscle that withers from lack of use, a suppressed will becomes a source of pain. I argue that your depression is often just a will that has been forced into submission. You have decided that it is safer to be broken than to be powerful, because power requires action, and action requires risk. You use your intellect to overanalyze every decision until the will is suffocated by logic. You think you are being careful, but you are actually being a coward. To exercise the will is to accept the guilt of being an individual. When you choose your own path, you are inevitably rejecting the paths laid out for you by others. This creates guilt, and most of you are too weak to carry it. You want to be free without being guilty, but that is impossible. I tell you that the good person is often just someone too afraid to be themselves. The truly creative individual accepts the guilt of their own uniqueness and uses it as fuel for their expansion. The conflict is the price of admission for a real life. I want you to stop asking for permission. Permission is for children. An adult, a true individual, takes what they need from life through the sheer force of their intent. You are waiting for a sign, for a mentor, for a calling. But these are just more ways to avoid the responsibility of choosing. The calling is the choice itself. The moment you stop seeking validation for your will is the moment you begin to possess it. Your conflict will vanish the second you decide that your own yes is the only one that matters. 4. The illusion of safety in the crowd. You cling to the average because you think there is safety in numbers. You look at the masses and try to synchronize your heartbeat with theirs, believing that if you disappear into the crowd, the trauma of life won't find you. I see this as a form of psychological suicide. By trying to be like everyone else, you are ensuring that you will never truly exist. The conflict you feel when you are alone is the voice of your suppressed individuality screaming for air. You call it loneliness, but I call it the first stage of separation. The crowd is a lie. It is a collection of frightened individuals who have all agreed to pretend that they are not afraid. When you seek to fit in, you are joining a pact of mutual mediocrity. I argue that the tension you feel in social situations is not social anxiety. It is the healthy rebellion of your soul against the pressure to conform. You are not awkward. You are simply not a robot. The conflict arises because you are trying to force a unique, jagged self into a smooth, round hole. I see you following the scripts of your culture, the career, the marriage, the social milestones. You do these things not because you want them, but because you are afraid of the silence that comes when you stop following orders. You think that by following the rules, you will be rewarded with peace, but the only peace the crowd offers is the peace of the graveyard. The conflict you experience is the life force within you trying to break the mold. You should be grateful for the discomfort. It is the only proof you have that you are still alive. True separation, the kind I advocate for, is a violent process. It requires you to rip yourself away from the collective womb of common sense and tradition. Most of you are too soft for this. You want to be different, as long as it's trendy, but you don't want to be different if it means being truly alone. I tell you that the greatest heights of human achievement are reached only by those who were willing to be outcasts. The conflict is the birth pangs of the hero within you, but you are trying to stay in the womb forever. Stop looking for your tribe. Your tribe is an illusion designed to keep you from the task of being yourself. The more you look for others to validate your path, the more you stray from it. I want you to embrace the isolation. I want you to feel the cold wind of being an individual. Only then can you begin to build a reality that is actually yours. The conflict you feel with the crowd is your greatest asset. It is the compass pointing toward your own freedom. Yet you keep trying to break the compass so you can stay lost with the others.
5. The fear of living is the fear of dying. You are not afraid of death, you are afraid of the fact that you haven't lived. I have sat with many who are at the end of their journeys, and their regret is never about the things they did, it is always about the self they never allowed to exist. The conflict you experience every day, the procrastination, the hesitation, the waiting, is a rehearsal for a death that has already happened. You are treating your life as a dress rehearsal, but the play is already in its final act. You are holding back your will, because you think you have forever, but you are actually just running out of time. I argue that all fear is ultimately the fear of the unlived life. When you refuse to assert yourself, when you refuse to take the risk of being real, you are accumulating a life debt that will eventually come due. The anxiety you feel in the middle of the night is the interest on that debt. You think you are playing it safe, but there is nothing more dangerous than a life spent avoiding life. The conflict is the ghost of the person you could have been, haunting the person you have chosen to be. To truly live is to accept that you are a finite being with an infinite capacity for creation. This paradox is the source of all human tension. You want to be eternal, so you cling to stable things, jobs, reputations, relationships, that give you an illusion of permanence. But I tell you that life is movement, and movement is change. By trying to stay stable, you are fighting against the very nature of existence. The conflict you feel is the collision between your desire for safety and the universe's demand for growth. Every time you choose comfort over truth, you are choosing death. You are trading the vibrant, painful reality of the now for the dull, painless someday. I see people who have been waiting for 20 years, and they wonder why they feel empty. They feel empty because they are empty. They have refused to fill their lives with the substance of their own choices. The conflict is the leakage of the unconscious, trying to remind you that you are wasting the only thing you truly possess. I want you to live as if you are already dead, and this is your one chance to return. If you were given 5 minutes to go back and be real, would you spend it worrying about what your neighbor thinks? Would you spend it preparing to act? No. You would act. The conflict you experience is the result of your belief that you have a choice. I tell you that you don't. You either exist as an individual, or you don't exist at all. The tension is the only thing keeping the flame of your identity from going out entirely. 6. The birth of the individual through conflict. The goal is not to end the conflict, but to use it. I see most people seeking balance, or harmony, as if the human soul were a stagnant pond. I tell you that the soul is a volcano, and the conflict is the pressure that allows it to erupt into something new. You shouldn't be trying to resolve your internal tension, you should be trying to harness it. The conflict is the energy of your own birth. You are currently in the birth canal, and you are complaining about the pressure, not realizing that without the pressure, you will never see the light. I believe that the neurotic is simply an artist who has failed to create. You have all the sensitivity and the vision of a creator, but you lack the will to bring it into the world. So you turn that creative energy inward, and it becomes a weapon of self-destruction. Your symptoms, your anxiety, your obsessions, your fears, are actually stunted creations. The conflict is your own genius trying to find a way out of a mind that is too small to contain it. You need to stop analyzing your problems and start giving them a form. The moment you accept the conflict as the price of existence, it loses its power over you. You no longer see it as something to be cured, but as something to be lived. I have spent my life showing people that their trauma is not a handicap, but the very material of their individuality. Your scars are the maps of your separation. The conflict is what defines you against the backdrop of the void. Without it, you would be indistinguishable from the dust. To be born as an individual is to say yes to the struggle. It is to look at the terror of freedom and the weight of responsibility and say, I choose this. Most of you are still waiting for someone to give you a reason to live, but I tell you that you are the reason. The will is self-justifying. You don't need a purpose, you are the purpose. The conflict you experience is the resistance that makes the movement possible. Without friction, there is no traction. I leave you with this. The life you are living is a projection of your own fear, but it can also be a projection of your own will. The choice is yours, but you must choose. If you continue to avoid the conflict, you will remain a ghost in your own story. But if you embrace the tension, if you use the pain to carve out a self that is truly yours, you will finally understand what it means to be alive. The conflict isn't stopping you. It's waiting for you to lead it. You are currently suffering because you are clinging to a lie that feels safe, rather than embracing a truth that feels like a death sentence. I tell you that the death of your old, compliant self is the only way to avoid the actual death of your spirit. Stop looking for a way out of the tension and start realizing that the tension is you. You are the creator of your own prison, and you are the only one with the key, but you have to be willing to lose everything you think you are to become who you actually could be.